Okay, this is another lightweight episode, but I actually expected it this time because I know what happened here. I don't know enough about record labels and release planning and all that to confirm this for sure, but every year in late March, there seems to be just one Friday that a ton of new releases get aggregated on. I have something like 8 or 9 listed that day on my Rate Your Music page, and that results in a bit of a drop before and after that date. Not so much that I didn't find anything of value this month, of course, but it's definitely a bit louder than I'd like to make these episodes. Regardless, I can only work with what I'm given here, so let's just get right to it. This is Albumpressions. In the category of intensely emotional albums that didn't really hit me until the second listen, we have the self-titled and reportedly final album from Youth Novel. Somewhere between screamo, emo violence, black metal, and post-rock, so basically exactly what I've been into lately, and yeah. It's wild and intense, but also decidedly measured, knowing when to back off after overwhelming the listener with roaring guitars, aggressive drum work, and indecipherable screams. One thing I noticed they do a few times is focus the track around a single melody, where it'll be introduced in a quieter moment and then built up in intensity, or even vice versa. Either way, it lends cohesion and memorability to each track, on top of the whole thing flowing together effortlessly. I do wish that the lyrics were available, as I definitely feel like I'm missing something not knowing what these songs are about. But there's an obvious appeal to this if you're into this style of raw, powerful screamo, and you'll probably like what you find. Technical death metal is a label that frustrates me because seeing it can mean any of three things. One, it could mean a forward-thinking, technical but focused act like Warforged, or it could go too far and make something impenetrably boring like that recent Ad Nauseam album. And option 3 is the Gorod or Obscura style of tech death, where everything sounds polished and mechanical and boring as sin. Christ, I'm so sick of that sound. Anyways, I don't know why I brought up any of that because this album is none of those. It's just progressive death metal, which I'm fine with. Prog death is where all the interesting prog metal migrated to in the 2010s, and this winding, instrumentally satisfying space epic is right up my alley. Though, admittedly in a kind of boring way where I enjoy the heck out of it, but it doesn't give me a ton else to work with. It's weirdly front-loaded, I guess, but the later tracks aren't exactly weak, just shorter, more instrumentally focused. If you like Between the Buried and Me or bands like that, you'll probably like this one too. I dig it. Ritt Momney, rise up! No, but for real, you wouldn't expect to take Ritt Momney, of all artists, seriously, and yet here I am, enjoying this album quite a bit. It's very much a bedroom pop type of affair, a genre I haven't exactly done a deep dive in, so take this with a grain of salt, but I generally like what I'm hearing here. I think they're good at creating a chilled out, vibey atmosphere in a way that works for me, without ever overextending any ideas to the point where the vibe wears thin. The Put Your Records On cover works in the same way for me, though that one's way more radio friendly than anything here. These songs don't really have pop hooks. They're often non-linear, some of them are very short or underdeveloped, and yeah, the rapping doesn't work at all the few times it pops up, but the blend of twinkly keys and clean guitars alongside the smooth vocals, processed or otherwise, does create an intimate atmosphere that allows the tunes to carry a fair bit of emotional weight. I won't act like this is a masterpiece or even all that great. It's a first attempt and it kind of shows, but for what it delivers, yeah, no, I'm on board with this. Hope to hear more soon. Okay, first, let's take a moment to appreciate this album art. Alright, anyways, here's yet another screamo album. Can you tell what genre I've been really into lately? Although, this one jumps around the scale of hardcore a bit more, sometimes going as light as post-hardcore, and as high as borderline mathcore in a few places too. To say the least, it definitely keeps itself dynamic and very emotional too. The back half of the title track especially gives me chills, though it's far from the only moment here to really hit hard. Sound-wise, it's not that unique, hitting a balance of hard-hitting riffing and twinkly melodies, basically what you'd expect from the genre. I will say the drums, especially the hi-hats, feel mixed a bit too loud for my taste, but otherwise the production in general works for what it's going for. I don't know, it's hard to really say too terribly much about this one, other than that I found it quite enjoyable for an album in this vein, and I'm definitely going to be revisiting it more than a few times in the coming months. I actually had some trepidation about this one going into it, but, well, that didn't last long, thankfully. Stortregn sit in this weird place between technical death metal and melodic black metal, where they have the general sound of the latter, but the proficiency and song structures of the former, and it makes them stand out in both categories. Albeit, that excessive focus on technical proficiency can weigh them down, as it did on their previous album, and as it does for a lot of technical death metal, really. And I think what this album has that the last one didn't have is an increased scope. Instead of a sequence of individual tracks, everything flows together here, a 40+ minute epic in the vein of Crimson or Winter's Gate. I do think that this does come at the expense of well-crafted individual tracks. There's certainly no Children of the Obsidian Light on this album, at least not on first glance. But the music and the musicianship was colorful and diverse enough to keep me engaged, and the grandeur of the whole project is just the icing on the cake. Ooh, this is a really pleasant surprise. Sitting at the crossroads between Midwest emo and jazz, two genres I'll admit never interested me all that much on their own, yet the hybrid of the two feels almost effortless, as the math rock tendencies of Midwest emo are already proven to mesh well with jazz elements, and they don't half-heart it either. It's not just little flourishes of horns and pianos on top of fairly normal emo tracks. It really is a smooth, flowing hybrid of the two. Very clean but warm texture to the instrumentation that can still pack some fire when it needs to. Twin lead vocalists trading off across the 9 tracks. And themes of growing up in America as the children of immigrants, always feeling like an outsider in this incredibly racist and xenophobic country despite being born here. As well as themes of how their parents' struggles and infighting have lasting effects on future generations to follow. Honestly, it's a lot more to unpack than I have room to do here, and I can't exactly claim experience of these themes either, so just go listen to this one, you won't regret it. And now onto viewer requests. There are none. Oops, yeah, I didn't get very many requests on the last video, and the few I did get didn't really give me much to work with or talk about, so, I'm wondering if I should just drop the segment entirely since, well, I'm aware I can be kinda mean and picky with albums. You don't want to know how many new albums I tend to listen to in a month's time. The fact that I only have a handful for these episodes is the result of my curated taste more than anything. But, yeah, let me know down in the comments below if you're interested in me keeping this segment regardless, and if you have any viewer requests for the next episode, feel free to leave them in the comments as well. The rules are in the pinned comment below. And yeah, that'll do it for this month. I kinda got all I had to say out already, so we'll keep this brief. Definitely looking forward to the 19th though, because yeah, there's some big ones dropping, at least for me. Until then, I'm Cyro and I'll see you next time.